morning, everybody. Welcome, Riverwood. You ready to worship with us? Thank you. All three of you are ready to worship. The rest of you, though, we'd like you to stand and, if you want to, worship with us. Let's sing together. Great is our God. Oh, great is our God. So we should worship greatly. No song is too loud, no orchestra too stately to hail the majesty of our King. So lift your voices loud as we sing. Oh, great is our God, so let our songs be endless. So awesome His ways, how could we comprehend them? So we will make it known to our kids, and we will sing about because our God is great. Oh, great is our God, and we cannot contain it. We sing from our souls, affected by His greatness. His mercy covers all that He's made, showing His glory and His grace. We will sing your praise and pour forth your fame. We will bless your name. Let everyone give thanks, because our God is great. We will sing your praise and pour forth your name. We will bless your name. Let everyone give thanks, because our God is great. We will sing your praise and pour forth your fame. We will bless your name. Let everyone give thanks, because our God is great. Here we go. Lord reigns. Lord reigns, let the people shout. He reigns in righteousness. Let the heavens be glad and the earth rejoice. Lord reigns, let the people clap their hands. Angels shout, the redeemed have come to dance, to celebrate He reigns. The Lord reigns, the Lord reigns, the Lord reigns. We will sing and shout, you reign, you reign, you reign forever shout. He reigns in righteousness. Let the heavens be glad and the earth rejoice. The Lord reigns, let the people clap their hands. Angels shout, every kingdom come to dance, to celebrate, He reigns, our God reigns. The Lord reigns, the Lord reigns, the Lord reigns. We will sing and shout, You reign, You reign, You reign, forever King of all. 'Cause You are King of all. Let all the people sing of Your awesome power in all the earth. Let darkness tremble at Your name. Why do the nations rage when the King is on His throne? Now and forever You will reign. Let all the people sing of Your awesome power in all the earth. Let darkness tremble at Your name, Jesus. Why do the nations rage when the King is on His throne? Now and forever You will reign. The Lord reigns, the Lord reigns, the Lord reigns. We will sing and shout, You reign, You reign, You reign, forever King of all. The Lord reigns, the Lord reigns, the Lord reigns. We will sing and shout, You reign, You reign, You reign, forever King of all. Lord, You are King of all.
Let's hear the word of the Lord found in Psalm 33. All you that are righteous, shout for joy for what the Lord has done. Praise Him, all you that obey Him. The Lord created the heavens by His command, the sun, the moon, the stars by His spoken word. He gathered all the seas into one place. He shut up the ocean depths in storerooms. Worship the Lord, all the earth. Honor Him, all peoples of the world. When He spoke, the world was created. At His command, everything appeared. We put our hope in the Lord. He is our protector and our help. We are glad because of Him. We trust in His holy name. May your constant love be with us, Lord, as we put our hope in You.
We worship You, our King. Your church will stand and sing. Eternal praises bring to You, our God and King. Sing that again. We worship You, our King. Your church will stand and sing. Eternal praises bring to You, our God and King. Immortal, invisible, God only wise, in light inaccessible, hid from our eyes, most blessed, most glorious, the Ancient of Days, almighty, victorious, Thy grace leaves on the tree and wither and perish, but not changes thee. We worship you, our King. Your church will stand and sing. Eternal praises bring to you, our God and King. Great Father of glory, pure Father of light, thine angels adore thee, all railing their sight. All praise we would render, oh, help us to see. 'Tis only the splendor of light hideth thee. We worship you, our King. Your church will stand and sing. Eternal praises bring to you, our God and King. We worship you. We worship you, our King. Your church will stand and sing. Eternal praises bring to you, our God and King. You are God. To you, our God and King.
Dear Lord, we have gathered to do exactly that, to worship you. You are the King, and you are the one, as we look into your word, who is also the one who is the Creator. And we are reminded even of that as we came here this morning, of the bright sunshine, the crisp air, the leaves that are changing. All of these things are reminders of the world that we live in. And so many times we just take that for granted, that, oh, it's just another day. But we realize that there is someone who is behind all of it. And the one is you. We recognize you and worship you this morning as the creator of the world. And not only are you just the creator of the things that we see, but also of things that we need in our lives. And specifically, we talk about your Son, which was a great gift that you gave us, your Son, Jesus Christ, so that we could have eternal life and have it to the full. And so, Lord, I thank you for all of these gifts you give us and all the things that you provide for us. You are a God who also, in the midst, as we just sang, gives us hope and one whom we can trust. And so we thank you as we have gathered here to worship you this morning. And we also think of others just to be praying for. And as we think of our missionaries, we think of the Moors who are doing a wonderful work in Asia. And as they coordinate different people and missionaries, I pray you'd give them strength and also wisdom to do that well for your kingdom. And I just thank you for their ministry, and I pray for them as a couple, that for Jim and Marion, you will just bind them together for their marriage. Please protect them. We thank you also just for the ministries that are happening here in our own church, and for the college group specifically that meets on Thursday nights, and a community of students. We thank you for what you are doing amongst them, and I pray you just continue to grow them closer to you and fill them with a knowledge of your will. Thank you for listening this morning as we continue in our worship. We worship the one who has created. We love you. We pray this in your name. Amen. You may be seated. And as we get started this morning, I'm going to have a couple join me on stage here. And we love to tell stories of what has happening with families here. And why don't you introduce us to you and tell us about your family?
Absolutely. My name is Eric Asp. This is my wife, Marcy. We have 3 kids who are scattered around the building somewhere. Elliot, who's age 12, Olivia, who's age 10, and Cor, who is age 7. And we've been coming around to Riverwood for almost 2 years now. It was 2 summers ago that we moved to Kent after having lived abroad for 10 years. And it was kind of, Marcy and I grew up in Ohio, and so this is kind of our stomping grounds, but our children all grew up in the Netherlands, where we were helping to start a new church for young people. And so we moved back here in July of 2012 and kind of started working with being missionary to college students at Kent State University. We work with an organization called H2O on the campus at Kent State. And just discovered in our first 6 months living here in Kent that we lacked peer relationships. We were leading this church for college students that, our church is 85% college students. And so felt like we were really missing that connection for our kids to have kids their age, for us even to be a part of other people who'd been married for a while. And felt like Riverwood is just a blessing from God. We were so grateful when we struck up conversation with you guys and you had this really warm, welcoming attitude for us to come and find a place where we could connect with other people in our life phase.
And I know you're seeing now a slide of FX, and so how does a little bit of your story kind of connect with a simple program that happens once a month and a program here?
Yeah, well, I think we've made it to every single FX since January. Was that when it started? Yes, we love it. We think that it's just, it provides that thing where our whole family can worship together. It provides a space where I think it is a very visible, tangible reminder of some of the things we felt God speaking to us as we were moving from the Netherlands to Ohio, and felt like it was just a way of God showing that he's with us, he's for us. I don't know if you want to explain any more on that.
Our family's verse actually is in Joshua 1:9, and I think it fits in with this. It's, have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And I think whether we've lived on the other side of the ocean or here, we've just seen God walking with us and providing for us, and we feel like Riverwood has been part of God's provision to our family. Our kids love FX. It's lots of fun, but it also gives our family a springboard, I think, for discussion after we're here, and so we've really appreciated that.
Well, great. We just wanted you to meet another family and hear their story, so thank you for you being a part of our community. And also, just a reminder, tonight is FX. Come on out. Everybody is welcome. It'll be a great time together. We are looking forward to that. Well, also, you came in and you grabbed one of these, hopefully. It was handed to you. This is our bulletin. And we just first want to say thank you for being here. Welcome to Riverwood. If you're new with us, we would love to get to know you better. You can fill out a communication card, and you can take that out to the counter out there, the tall counter, and they would love to give you a folder of more of what's going on here at our church. But in a real quick synopsis, just open up our bulletin together. We can just kind of run through a few of the things that are happening here. If you notice on the far right-hand, you'll see a thing called Opportunities to Reflect Christ. Orange for outreach. Right there, it explains it, and we are giving monies this month to that in the orange envelope, so there's more information there. If you go all the way to the left panel, you'll see this is also the season of Trunk or Treat. We have a Trunk or Treat festival that's going to be on October 25th right here on our own property. This is a great event. We'll have probably close to 800 people on our property that day from the community. So with that being said, we need a lot of volunteers, close to 150, just to make this thing run smoothly. And all of the ways you can help are right here. So the next step is you read something here and you're like, yeah, I could do that. Go out to the low counter and there are sign-up sheets, and we would love to have you volunteer to be a part of that day, whether it's hosting a trunk or being part of the cleanup crew, however you can help, we would love to have you help in that way. All right. Also in the middle panel, you'll see later today, there's going to be winter song auditions, and so that's going to be at 1 p.m. And then also, finally, on the far right, you'll see that there is a ladies' movie night. And so the movie is called Mom's Night Out, but it's a way for the ladies of our church just to get together and invite a friend in a very non-threatening atmosphere to be with one another. And that's going to be on Saturday, October 18th. So let me pray for us as we continue in our worship this morning. Dear God, we thank you as we've gathered to worship, to sing songs, but also to hear your word. And so I pray that you would quiet our hearts and our minds and all the things that we're thinking about, maybe we need to do after church is over. I pray that you would center us on your word this morning to hear what you have to say from Genesis chapter 1. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
Well, good morning. Last week, we began our journey into the book of Genesis, and Cole got us started kind of showing how foundational the book of Genesis is in the rest of the Bible. Everybody's pointing back to Genesis. So many foundational things that we believe are in that book. So we're going to keep moving on that journey. We'll be in Genesis 1 this morning. But I just wanted to remind you, as we read Genesis, questions are going to come to your mind as you read on your own and as you listen to Genesis preached here for the next number of weeks. And we kind of wanted a place to capture those questions. So there's cards in the back of the seats if you want to write out a question, or at any point you can kind of text a question to that number. Just put Origins at the beginning of it. And we're going to make sure all those questions go to Lon Snyder so he can kind of have those. And now, our hope is that if there's a lot of people asking the same question, maybe we can address it for a few minutes on a Sunday morning. But a lot of those questions, we're going to have an elective class that we're going to try to answer some of those questions. So as you're reading, if you have a question, you'll notice this will be on the bottom of all the slides in case halfway through you're like, oh, now I have a question. You can feel free to engage in that way. So I did something this week that I don't normally do. I watched the evening news. I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. How many of you from time to time watch the evening news? All right, decent amount. Yeah, I don't normally do that. Nothing personal about it. I just don't often make time for that. I usually have no idea what's going on. People just have to fill me in. But for whatever reason, this day I watched the evening news, and I only caught 3 stories, but that was enough to make me quite fearful. The first story was the newscasters were talking about ISIS, and they were saying how ISIS is much more powerful, much more organized than the Taliban ever was. And if that's not enough to scare you, I don't know what is. The next story was a little bit closer to home. It was talking about how one of our country's biggest banks, the bank that my wife and I used, 75 million households, their financial data was hacked or something. And I was like, oh, just great. All of our money's been hacked. And then the last story was about the Ebola incident in Dallas, Texas, which some of our family lives there, and tomorrow we're going to get in the car and drive to Dallas. So I'm like, oh, great. So, you know, the world is a scary place. I mean, that was all before the commercial break. You know, there's organizations that are out to get our country. There's a virus that could be a deadly outbreak. Probably not, but could be. Our finances could be gone. We turn on the news and we hear how scary this world is. It can make us fearful. There are lots of forces outside of ourselves that seem to be a lot stronger than we are. You know, take the weather, for instance. You might say, well, I'm not scared of the weather. But put yourself in the heart of a hurricane, or in the path of a tornado, or on top of a fault line when an earthquake happens. And the weather is a scary thing. You know, for many of you, your health, or the health of someone you know, in your family, a friend, that's a very scary thing. Lots of reason to be fearful. I mean, you just mentioned the word cancer, and that's enough to undo any of us, right? There's other things that make us fearful. How about the economy? Last 5 years, our economy has seen such a downturn, unlike anything since the Great Depression. That can make us fearful of our jobs, fearful of the future. We live in a scary world. And if we're honest, probably most of us live with a certain amount of baseline fear all the time. Worry, anxiety. We're not the first people to live like this. In fact, ancient Israel was a very fearful people. When Moses wrote Genesis 1, when that was given to the Israelites, think of what they just been through. They had just left Egypt, the most powerful nation in the world at the time, a nation filled with what seemed to be powerful gods and goddesses. And Israel had lived subject to them for years and years and years. Okay, so now they're out of that, but now they're wandering around the desert. And they're looking ahead to Canaan, a land with powerful gods and all wanting to kill them. And while they're wandering around the desert, they're vulnerable to attack. They're probably wondering where food's going to come from, wondering where water's going to come from. They were a fearful people. And the message of Genesis chapter 1 is meant to be a word of comfort. It's meant to tell Israel, your God is the creator. I think the message that we see in Genesis 1 is that God is the matchless, sovereign king who created everything by his powerful word. God is the matchless, unequaled, sovereign king who created everything by his word. That's supposed to be the message. That is supposed to be the takeaway for Israel. It's supposed to be a word of comfort for us as well. Now, we don't often get this message out of Genesis chapter 1, do we? And I think that's because we often come to Genesis 1 with questions that the original author was not really intending to answer. For instance, we live in the scientific age, and we are fascinated with how questions, right? How does this work? How does that microwave work? How does our brain process information? Oh, how does the body work? And so we study the body inside and out. We're fascinated with how. And so we take that how question and we ask it of Genesis 1. How did God create the earth? Another question that sometimes we're super fascinated with is when. Okay, so how did God create the earth? But when did he do it? And so there's, when did God create? And there are countless books written on old earth philosophies and new earth philosophies. The problem is the biblical authors, they didn't really care about these questions. They lived pre-scientific age. It just didn't matter to them how or even when the earth was created. The question they cared about was who. Who did the creating? That was what really mattered to them. Moses, he's saying, nope, it's not the Egyptians' God. No, Canaanites, it's not your gods either. It is our God, Yahweh, the God of Israel. He's the one who created everything that exists. That's the question he's really interested in asking. It's all about the who. And I'm not talking about the 60s band. Now, let me tell you how we know this, okay? If I were to ask you, take me to the passage in the Bible where God talks about creating the earth, where would you take me? Genesis chapter 1, right? Yeah, that's the story. But what you may not realize is that's not the only place that talks about God creating the earth. In fact, Genesis chapter 2 has another creation account. But that's not it either. There are 9 poems throughout the Old Testament that are creation poems. There's 2 in the book of Job, 2 in the book of Proverbs, and 5 in the book of Psalms. All talk about God creating the earth. And then there's innumerable references throughout the rest of the Old Testament. Now, if you look at all of these accounts of God creating the earth, you'll realize there is great diversity in how God created. If you're asking the how question, well, in some of these accounts, God speaks and everything is created. In other accounts, God is said to be like a potter, and he's forming the world. He's crafting it. Others will say God creates by his wisdom. Some of them say God, he spreads out the world like a tent, and creation happens. And then one's rather interesting. God creates the world by slaying Leviathan, the 7-headed beast, and building the world on his carcass. You don't read that one to your children? Really? So if we're asking the how question of all of these passages, well then it looks like there's lots of contradictions, right? In some God creates this way, and some, but that's because that's not really the point. The point of all of these is who. That's the same in every one of these stories. It's God, Yahweh, the God of Israel, who is the creator. That is what is really important. And so here's really my point, is that throughout the Bible, God's activity in creation is consistently depicted literarily, poetically, metaphorically, and not technically, scientifically, or astronomically. We're the ones who are really obsessed with those last three, and we try to put those back into Genesis 1, where that just was not really on Moses' radar screen. You know, most of us, I think we come to Genesis 1 and we think, if I was there when God originally created, and I pulled out my iPhone and I hit record, and I just recorded as God was creating, then what would be on my phone would be what is written down in Genesis 1. And I think we're missing the point when we do that, because that's not really Moses' concern. He's not terribly interested in that. He wasn't even there. No, he's very interested in making the point, who is it that created everything? And he's going to use every literary technique he knows how to powerfully make that point. And his ultimate goal, remember, fearful Israel, his ultimate goal is to comfort God's people and say, okay, you live in a scary world. There's a lot of scary things around you. You don't need to fear. Our God is in control. So let's get into it. If you have your Bibles, open with me to Genesis chapter 1. Actually, open up to page 1. It's the only time you can ever say that, and it works. Page 1. As we go through this chapter, I want us to make 4 observations that are really going to bring out this message of comfort that we see. The first verse, you probably have it memorized. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The very first statement in the Bible is a powerful claim that God was before everything existed and that he is the creator of everything you see. That is a powerful statement. Genesis, the very first sentence of the Bible, God is the subject, and he's the subject of the entire Bible. There's comfort even in this verse. God is in control of everything. He created everything. But there's more comfort to come. Verse 2 shifts the focus. Now we're looking at earth. God's work of creation, it's not complete yet. In fact, verse 2 expresses things in rather bleak terms. Look at verse 2. It says, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. I mean, this is a picture of a wasteland that's uninhabitable. It's pitch black. There's no light at all. All that exists is this formless, empty, deep, dark ocean. Nothing can grow or develop. It's utter chaos. And this actually provides the plot of Genesis 1. The question would be, well, what's God going to do about this? This is a chaotic situation. How is God going to change this? And the glimmer of hope is at the end of verse 2. It says, the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. God's Spirit is hovering like an eagle over this chaotic ocean. And now God's going to speak. And what happens is it's as if God says, okay, the world is formless and void. He takes the first 3 days and he says, I'm going to give it form. He attacks the formlessness. And then the last 3 days, he says, I'm going to fill it. It's not going to be void anymore. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. After verse 1, all that's there is this empty, dark, deep, chaotic ocean. And God speaks. And the first thing he attacks is the darkness. Look at verse 3. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. At a word, the darkness, it scurries away. And it's replaced by his radiant light. But still, all that's left is this foamy, watery mass. And so God speaks again. Verse 6. And God said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. And God made the expanse and separated the waters that were under the expanse from the waters that were above the expanse. And it was so. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. The earth, it's starting to take form. There's waters below, there's waters or the atmosphere above. But the earth, it still doesn't have enough form to sustain life. So God speaks again, verse 9. And God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let dry land appear. And it was so. Okay, now the earth has form. Besides the sea, besides the air, besides the atmosphere, now there's dry land. The earth is ready to be inhabited. First observation I want us to make is just the power of God's voice. This key phrase, and God said, if you count Genesis 1, 10 times in Genesis 1, and God said, and God said, and God said. 10 words, 10 commands. God creates everything there is. If you were an ancient Israelite and you heard that, 10 words, 10 commands, that would immediately remind you of the 10 commandments that God gave to Moses on Mount Sinai. The 10 words, 10 commands that were supposed to govern a nation. God, 10 words, 10 commands, governs creation. It's amazing power. Think about it, to speak and for something to happen, for creation to happen. Psalm 33 that was read earlier speaks of that power of his voice. Let's read part of it again. But the word of the Lord, by the word of the Lord, the heavens were made. By the breath of his mouth, all their host. For he spoke, and it came to be. He commanded, and it stood firm. This is an amazing picture. Listen to how one commentator describes this. He says, in ancient times, kings were the law of the land. The king spoke, and it was done. Genesis 1 portrays our God as king of the universe. His word is powerful. He speaks, and it's done. He commands, and it happens. He wills, and it comes to pass. That's a picture of a king on his throne. He speaks, and it happens. I was studying this the other day at Starbucks, and I went into the bathroom, and they have one of those hand dryers, you know, that shoots out air at incredibly fast rates. I looked it up. It's 180 miles per hour. But on the hand dryer, I don't know if you've seen this, on the hand dryer it says this. It says, feel the power, right? And I just laughed out loud because I felt like that was what God was saying to me. Is, do you sense the power of what's happening here? Do you know any other person, any other being where they can speak and things happen? This is a power unlike anything the world has ever seen. There is great comfort knowing that our God has that kind of power. He's a king on his throne. All he does is speak, and his will happens. He is in control. Nothing gets to you or me that doesn't first go through him. He is sovereign. God's word is powerful. The gospel writer of John, he starts his gospel drawing some parallels with Genesis chapter 1. Look at the first few verses of John 1. It says, in the beginning, those words sound familiar? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. John followed Jesus around, and he saw in Jesus a power unlike anything he had seen before. Jesus would speak, and someone would be healed. He'd speak, and a storm would be stilled. Jesus had the power to rise from the dead. And John says, that power reminds me of something. It reminds me of the power of God himself, who can speak and things happen. And so John draws all sorts of parallels. He says, you know what? That power at creation, that was Jesus. Jesus is the Word. Amazing parallels. Through Jesus, the Word, the whole world was created. Through Jesus, the Word, the whole world is being redeemed. Fascinating. You see the whole Trinity in creation. God the Father speaks. God the Son is the Word. And the Spirit is hovering over the ocean. God's Word is powerful. And there's great comfort for you and I in the fact that the God that we serve, The God in whose family we belong has that kind of power. That's the first observation that stood out. The second has to do with the significance and the frequency of the number 7. I don't know, you've probably heard before, but in the Bible, the number 7 is very significant. It signifies completeness. It signifies perfection. And the number 7 and its multiples are all over the place in Genesis chapter 1. I hadn't seen this before, and so I found it quite fascinating. For example, in the Hebrew, verse 1 has 7 words. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, obviously, this doesn't carry over into English. Verse 2 in the Hebrew has 14 words. Now, you could think, well, that's just coincidence, right? Well, once you see all of the different ones, you realize, oh, no, this is quite intentional. The name of God, Elohim, in chapter 1 is used 35 times. And this actually does carry over. If you have a fairly literal translation, you count the number of times God is in there, 35 times. Don't count right now, please. The word heavens, the word earth, 21 times in chapter 1. The crazy one for me is in chapter 2, the first 3 verses. That acts as the conclusion to all of this first creation account. And that conclusion has 5 phrases. Total number of words, 35 words. But of the 5 phrases, the 3 middle phrases each have 7 words. And they each have the word 7 in them. All over the place, this number 7. In fact, Moses even patterns the creation story on a week, 7 days. Just as Israel would work 6 days and then rest on a day, so God creates the world in 6 days and rests on the 7th. Except Moses has a problem. He has 8 creative acts that he wants to report, but he's only got 6 days to do it. So what's he going to do? Well, you can see when you kind of lay out the days, he puts 2 creative acts on day 3 and 2 on day 6. And that kind of shows how the days are broken down. You can see the first 3 days go after this formlessness. He wants to give the world form, and so he creates light, he creates expanse, he creates the land and the sea. Days 4, 5, and 6, he's now filling what he created. He puts the lights in the heavens. He makes the birds and the fish and the animals and people. 7 days. So what's the point of all this? Why all this 7 all throughout here? I think it powerfully makes the point that this is not a chronological report. This is a carefully crafted sermon. This is Moses' sermon to the Israelites to powerfully make the point that God created everything complete. He created everything perfect. Which brings me to my third observation, which I think would have been extremely comforting to the Israelites. This may have struck you as funny, but it has to do with the greater light and the lesser light. This happens on day 4. Turn there, verse 16. Verse 16 is day 4. It says, "And God made the 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars." Now, I don't know if that has struck you as odd when you've read it in the past, but all throughout chapter 1, God is naming things. He creates the day and the night, and he names it the day, and he gives it the name night. Then he creates the dry land, and he creates the sea, and he names it earth, and he names it sea. Well, then we get here, and God doesn't name it. He creates a greater light and a lesser light, but he leaves out the name. Now, I think that would be odd to the original reader as well, just like it is to us. Moses does this quite intentionally. All those other nations around Israel, guess who were their gods? The sun and the moon and the stars. They were worshipped in the other nations. So Moses says, no, those beings that all the other nations worship and follow, God created them. God created them just like he created everything else. In fact, Moses makes this point very explicit. He puts the sun and the moon, he puts it right between the vegetables and the fish. Just another created thing. Other nations think these are powerful beings. Nope. God creates them with a word. Our God is powerful. Everything, there's no match for him. Our God is stronger. Our God is greater. Our God is higher than any other. Moses loved Chris Tomlin too. So, do you feel the comfort of this? The things that you and I fear, the things that cause us so much worry, so much anxiety, they are tiny matters for our God. They might not feel tiny. They might feel very heavy and weigh heavily on you. But the more you and I focus on our God and who he's revealed himself to be, we don't have to fear. We can replace that fear with trust in him. There's one more observation I'd like to make. God, the King, he's created his whole kingdom good. You can't miss this. If you go through Genesis 1 and you're reading, you see over and over again the same phrase, and God saw that it was good. The light was good. The dry land was good. The vegetation was good. The light of the sun, moon, and stars was good. The fish and the birds were good. The land animals were good. 6 times. It's good. And then God creates people. And the 7th time, there's that number again, this is what God says, verse 31. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. God creates his whole kingdom good. And yet, I think we see this most clearly when we look at this 6th day. God has just finished creating the animals. Up to this point in the story, everything is clipping right along. God creates light, light, dry land, dry land. Everything is, the pace of the story is quite fast. And then we get to day 6 in verse 26, and things start to slow down a bit. Now God has this conversation with himself. Look at verse 26. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Now, next week, we're going to spend the whole time talking, what does this mean? We're made in God's image. But I want to just say one thing about that this week. And that is that in the ancient world, kings, they would put statues of themselves all over their kingdom. Why? To remind people living there who's the king. They'd put these little statues that looked like the king all over the place so that people would know, oh, I'm in his domain. I'm in his kingdom. Well, that's what God does. He doesn't create little statues. No, he creates man and woman in his image. And then he says, spread out, fill the earth. You're marking my territory. Wherever you go, you are telling the world, this is my domain. Look at verse 28, this charge to spread out. And God blessed them. God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, over every living thing that moves on the earth. You see what God's saying? He's saying, this is my territory. Anywhere you go, you're going to see people. And when you see people, that should remind you, you are living in my kingdom. And when you're in my kingdom, I'm in control. I'm the king. I'm the sovereign king who's on the throne. There's no need to fear. After creating his image bearers and commissioning them to rule, God reflects on what he's made and he says, it's very good. Genesis 1 gives us an amazing picture of God. We need that picture. Ancient Israel needed that picture. We need to be reminded that God's power is unmatched. There's no equal. There's no other being that's strong like he is. No other force in the world that seems scary to us. Nothing can match his power. Those who originally read Genesis 1, they needed that reminder. The Israelites constantly lived in fear of other nations, of the other nations' gods. They needed to know their God was the matchless king. In Genesis 1, God invites the Israelites and us to make an exchange. He invites us to trade our fear over whatever is scary in your life, to trade that for trust in Him. So, what makes you fearful? What causes you to worry? What makes you anxious? That is the specific area of your life, of my life, that God wants to speak to right now. And as I was studying this all week, I realized I live with a little baseline fear. And God wanted to address that. Some of the areas for me, this very task, preaching, bringing God's word, it's a weighty task. And it causes fear or worry because I want to do it well. That's an area of fear that the Lord wanted to say, you know what? I'm the king. I care a whole lot more than you do about my people hearing my word. You can replace your fear with trust. My dad has pretty significant heart disease, and almost every time that the phone rings and it's my mom, I have a little bit of fear that she's just going to say, he's gone. And God wanted to remind me, you don't need to live in fear. I'm in control. I am on my throne. That doesn't mean it's always going to go well, but it means whatever happens, it didn't happen by accident. Thursday, I'm going to hand Nathan to an anesthesiologist, and for 5 or 6 hours, they're going to go to work on his hands and feet again. This isn't new. I've done this 5 times this year, but that is a scary, kind of fearful moment. And God was powerfully speaking to me this week to say, don't live in fear. I'm God. I'm in control. I've got this. You can trust me. Where are you fearful in your life? What do you worry about? Normally, we don't have to dig very far. These things are on the surface, aren't they? We think about them. We stay up at night thinking about them. God is inviting each of us to make that exchange, to come to Him, to remember who He is. That's what Genesis 1's all about. It's whose God has revealed Himself to be, and when we focus on that, we can let go of our fear. You and I are in the almighty hands of God. Communion itself is a physical reminder of what Jesus has done. It reminds us we are in God's family. Through the body and blood of Christ, we have been invited into the family of the King. If you're a child of the King and the King has that kind of power, you don't need to fear anything, right? We're in His hands. Let me pray for us. God, I want to create a little bit of space right here for your Spirit to work. Lord, point out in each of us where we're fearing right now. Lord, thank you for Genesis chapter 1. Thank you for what it reveals about you. That there's no other God like you. There's no power in the world like you. That while we live in a scary world full of all sorts of what seem to be powerful forces, they take their cues from you. You are the King. You are sovereign. You're on the throne. Lord, increase our faith. Increase our trust as we fix our eyes on you. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
At your name, the mountains shake and crumble at your name. The oceans roar and tumble, and at your name, angels will bow. The earth will rejoice. Your people cry out. Lord of all the earth, we shout your name, filling up the skies with endless praise, Yahweh, Yahweh. We love to shout your name, oh Lord. At your name, the morning breaks in glory. At your name, creation sings his story. And at your name, angels will bow. The earth will rejoice. Your people cry out. Lord of all the earth, we shout your name, filling up the skies with endless praise, Yahweh, Yahweh. We love to shout your name, oh Lord. There is no one like our God. We will praise you, praise you. There's no one like our God. We will sing, we will sing. There is no one like our God. We will praise you, praise you. There's no one like our God. We will sing, we will sing. There is no one like our God. We will praise you, praise you. There's no one like our God. We will sing. Lord of all the earth, will shout your name, filling up the skies with endless praise, Yahweh, Yahweh. We love to shout your name, oh Lord. Lord of all the earth, we shout your name, filling up the skies with endless praise, Yahweh, Yahweh. We love to shout your name, oh Lord. We love to shout your name, oh Lord.
As we enter into this time of communion, we retell his story, that story of creation, that perfection that God poured into creating the plants of the field, such as wheat that goes into the making of this bread, the plants of the field, such as the grapes that go into this juice. We participate in that story of creation. We participate in the story of the fall, as each of us entered into sin along with Adam and Eve. We participate in the story of redemption, as we remember that these elements represent Christ's shed blood and his body that was broken for us. We enter into that story of redemption. And we look forward to a time when we will eat and drink of these in a perfect new creation, a new heaven and a new earth. That story wrapped up one little piece of bread and one little cup that you'll receive today. We join today with churches around the world and through all times that join in reciting this creed that also wraps up what we believe about God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Let's recite this together. We believe in one God, the Father Almighty, Amen. If you believe that creed today, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, we invite you to come forward if you have that relationship with Jesus Christ for your salvation. If you're here this morning and not really sure about all this, where you stand with Christ, haven't entered into that relationship yet, this will be a great time to reflect on that as you listen to the music, consider the words that we just spoke, and consider the gift that God is offering out to you today to put your faith and trust in Jesus Christ and begin a whole new life with him. We'd love to talk to you more about that after the service if you'd like. Anyone you've seen on stage today would be glad to talk to you about that. When you do come forward, you'll receive a piece of bread and a cup of juice. And when you feel ready, go ahead and take that. Come forward when you're ready. Take that when you're ready. We won't all wait until everyone's been served. If you're here this morning and have an intolerance or allergy to gluten, simply ask the bread server for a gluten-free alternative. They'd be happy to provide that for you. One of the pastors, I'd like to invite the pastors and elders who are serving to come on forward and prepare. Also like to invite any members of our prayer team that are in the room today to make yourself available for prayer. If any of you are here this morning and you'd like to, as part of your preparation for communion, meet with someone for prayer, please go on up to one of our prayer team members. They would love to pray with you. And yes, our prayer team member. And it'll be a long walk over to the cross. That's great. She'd love to pray with you during this hour. Lord, now be blessed during this time as we retell your story and remember Jesus Christ and his love, your love for us. Amen. close our time of worship today, I'd like to invite you to stand if you're able, sing with us. Here we go. The rising sun that fills the sky, starry host that lights the night, reflecting your glory. Mountain heights forever stand, rain that falls to soak the land, respond to your glory, Almighty God, in every way. You are above and beyond understanding. If we did not praise the rocks that cry out, glorious God, high above understanding. Vast expanse of earth and sea, held by you in harmony, speaks of your glory. All you've made since time began, life itself, your perfect plan, and it's all for your glory, Almighty God, in every way. You are above and beyond understanding. If we did not praise, the rocks would cry out, glorious God, high above understanding. Creation joins as one to sing, glorious God, so far above all earthly things. Almighty God, in every way, you are above and beyond understanding. If we did not praise, the rocks would cry out, glorious God, high above understanding. Almighty God, in every way, you are above and beyond understanding. If we did not praise, the rocks would cry out, glorious God, high above understanding.
With a renewed vision of who our God is, we can go out into the scary world, and yet without fear, with trust in who he is. Let's say our benediction, which speaks of that power. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us, to him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen. Go in his grace. We'll see you next week.